When it comes to defending against a knife attack, one of the things we focus on very closely is actually analyzing real knife attacks and understanding the characteristics of those attacks. One of the things you'll typically find, first of all, the most common attack is going to be a low thrust to the abdomen this way. And typically what will happen is the left hand is going to probe or grab before the attack. In many cases, what you'll see is a combination of characteristics where the knife is not shown. You'll see the left hand grab, latch onto the person or control them, or at least gauge and kind of get a feel for distance, and then the attack comes in behind it. Now, obviously, again, awareness and avoidance, we want to make sure that we're keying in on all those things. But when you look at what a lot of people believe they're going to do against a knife attack, it doesn't really apply when you don't know the knife is there in the first place. What you have is suspicious activity that's leading up to it. If you have somebody who's walking up to you and they have this hidden hand, this hand is visible, the other hand is behind their back, you don't really know what's going on. You see something suspicious, but you're not quite sure. So what we try to do in that circumstance is essentially deal with the first thing they present, which is that left hand. We use that to achieve control, and then what we do from there is basically analyze and see what's going on and then determine the best course of action from there. So if we consider that kind of circumstance, which again, very consistent with the typical characteristics of a knife attack. What we've got is Eric Mays with a trainer here. He's got his knife hidden behind his leg. I don't know what he's got, but I know that the first thing he presents me with is he's trying to grab with his hand. He may be trying to latch onto my shirt, he may be trying to hook me behind the head, or he may be simply trying to touch me and then know based on tactile index where I am in space. One of the things that neurologically we're hardwired to do is when we find something in space, like when you're tossing a ball up with your left hand, then hitting it with your right, that spatial orientation is something that we do better with our non-dominant hand. So this is something that is hardwired into people. So what we want to look at is when he reaches with that left hand, I want to do the fastest, most natural thing I possibly can to not let him latch on. So as he's reaching, I'm using my right hand to slap this aside. Obviously, as this thing is unfolding, as I see all these things going on, I'm trying to set a boundary. I'm trying to keep him away from me. I'm using all my soft skills of self-defense if at all possible. But when it comes to the point where he wants to make contact, I have to act quickly and I have to act in the most efficient way possible. So what I do is I'm deflecting here. Now what I also want to do here, I'm going to take a technique that, again, we've looked at in other USCCA videos. When we look at attack with a low angle 5, we've done split X, hooked the back of the arm, pulled this in, fired the knee, gone to a compression lock technique. Again, if you look through the videos, you'll see references to this, the split X defense against a low angle 5. Well, that same structure, if Eric puts his left hand in here, I can make that work on the back of his left arm. It's literally the same thing I did here. So again, one of our concepts is we want to take something, a good technique, and be able to get as much mileage out of it as possible. So in this case, when he reaches with his left hand, what I'm doing is I'm deflecting it and I'm also guiding it into what we call a goal post of my left hand here. So he comes in here, I guide it this way, and now as I track along the back of his tricep, I'm basically positioning my hands to where I can create that compression lock. Yeah. I create the compression lock, and in this case, I've got it nicely locked onto his elbow, and I can also kind of see at this point what's going on with his other hand. If I suddenly see him starting to get frisky as far as trying to stab me with that knife, I realize, hey, this is a lethal force situation. I can certainly take him down and do other stuff, or I can simply break this elbow, maybe pop some fingers into an eye, and then transition to my own weapon if necessary. Again, one of the things with counterblade concepts, even though we have empty hand skills, if we do have a weapon we can introduce, then we use this as our first line of defense. We transition to something else, such as a draw of a handgun. So again, let's look at this by the numbers. He comes in here and deflects. I deflect with my right hand. I'm catching this in the goal post here. My hands track here. I create the compression lock. And now what I want to do is, in this position, I'm still vulnerable if he has a weapon. I want to turn so I'm facing the same direction he is, and at the same time, I'm going to pivot my arms from this position here where they're bent at 90 degrees, pivot from the shoulders to bring them down until my forearms are parallel to the ground. So here, and at this point, I've got really decisive control, at least momentarily, and I can assess what's going on. Let's take a look at that from this side so you can see the details of the hand position. So deflecting here, feeding it here, and notice how this hand simply slides down to his tricep. This stays right here. I bring my hands together. So my right hand is if I'm shaking hands with somebody, it's pointed forward. Left hand is fingers up, waving goodbye to Eric. I put my palms together just like this. And now as I pivot from the shoulders and turn this way, you can see that's pretty uncomfortable. In this case, I see his hand go down. One easy thing to do from here is I simply come in and I would step on this hand and then finish up with knees to the head, whatever else I might want to do. The finish is there, lots of different options, okay? When we put this together with a little bit of enthusiasm, but not too much for Eric's, you can see that it's a very quick technique. It's something that I can pull off with very little motion. And what it allows me to do, very importantly, is to assess what's going on. Because up until this point, when you think about kind of a traditional self-defense mindset, what people might think about is, oh, well, this guy's got a knife, I'm going to shoot him. Well, if he's got the knife hidden, I don't know what's going on yet. He hasn't produced a lethal weapon. He's behaving in a way that is consistent with him having a weapon. This really becomes kind of the first real physical interaction we've got. And what I've got to do is exercise judgment throughout that entire process. If I draw too soon, that's felony menacing. I'm not justified in doing so because I can't articulate the fact that he has a weapon. In this case, I've got this control. I might be able to see what's going on and be able to assess that situation very, very quickly, transition from an empty hand technique to the use of a weapon. That really is, when you look at the reality of dealing with a knife attack, those are the elements that you need to put together. If all you've got is the shooting skills, if all you've got is the firearm skills, you're not prepared yet. You need to add something like this to your toolkit.